are the images of multiple rulers of Egypt. Lined up, they are interesting to notice, detailed by where they come from. But interestingly, a epithet that they're given is the word hyksos. Well, what does this word mean? Why would these people of various different nations be called hyksos? Well, there's a strong reason for it, and I've noticed too many documentaries that get this wrong. So, first, one of the things that people say is, who are these mysterious Hyksos and where do they come from? Well, the word Hyksos comes from the word Hek, which means praise or worship, and it can be used as a noun for a king or a chief. And then the word Hesu, which means foreign or from abroad. Together, these words, Hik Hesu, make up Hyksos. Now, the word Hik has been used in various different ways, and it's usually abandoned when talking about the Hesu, meaning people from foreign lands. This word can be paired with Per Hesu, meaning the foreigners, or so many other words. But this word, Hesu, does not mean Asiatic. As a lot of people like to frame it, it's some mysterious group from Asia came in called the Hyksos. Not only is it not true, but the word Hesut or Hesu has been used mainly to refer to Nubia. It's mainly been used to refer to Libya after that, and then it's referred to Asia, less so because their encounters are less immediate in terms of calling the needing to call them foreigners. Now, almost everything else kind of makes sense when they say that the Hesu from Asia, the Amu, which is what they're really called, the people who come from Asia, doesn't matter what race they are, they come from the direction of the land called Asia. The Amu bring chariots, they bring certain type of oxen, they bring certain type of things into Egypt, and that's fine. But also, the Hesut from Punt bring certain objects. The sea people, who are also called Hesu, brought those things over. It's not a name, it's not a title, it's not an identity. What it really is a word meaning foreigners. And of course, because those foreigners ruled their own countries, when they're paired together, this word means independent countries, in a sense. If you wanted to look at the word realistically as opposed to the way it's put out there. When referring strictly to the land, they do not use the word Hesu because the word Hesu refers more to people than it does land, but it does talk about land specifically. But you can see when they speak about specific land, meaning they want to explain the type of land they're in, the type of place they're in, whether it's described by the people living amongst the areas, or whether they're describing the color of the land, or whether they're describing the texture or anything like that, they're going to use the word hest or hesut. Now, of course, we don't know how to pronounce these words, but since the word is Hesu on its own, with this sign in the middle being a guttural sound, even though I don't know how to make it properly, it will be an interesting word if we knew exactly how to say it. We can see this from real world examples, meaning, well, maybe not real world, but literal examples or literature examples. For example, when we see Hatshepsut going to the land of Punt, so we can see here, and all good products of this foreign land, the Puntites unknown to Egypt. Let's read that again. And all good products of this foreign land, the Puntites unknown to Egyptians. Now that we actually know the real area or the real place of this word, we can easily point it out, and it's right there, Hesut, meaning foreign lands. So we can see that the word Hyksos would also be used for people like the Puntites. So Hyksos in reality is not a definition, it's not a grouping, it's not anything like that. It's actually just a word referring to people from other areas, from foreign territories. Now, why am I telling you this? Well, there's two problems. One, it's because when you see the word Jesu being used, especially in the case of specific pictures, some people take it to mean that it's one group of people in that area. But the word Jesu, meaning foreigners, could refer to multiple different groups in one location. Just like how in some of the places in Lower Egypt, there was groupings of Nubians and Asiatics at the same time, and they were referred to as Nubians and Asiatics in other words, but they were referred to as Jesu. Now, for anybody paying attention, you're probably thinking, why are you leaving out the word Heka and focusing on the word Hesu? Well, the real reason why I'm doing that is because the ancient Egyptians did that. For example, you can see here that the writing of the word Hesu right there, Hesu, desert, necropolis, hill country, or foreign land. Now, if we remove the first image, then that gets rid of the word land and it becomes Hesu. Hesu, of course, meaning foreigner in this case. So these people are from foreign lands. Now, the only reason why I need to clear this up is because I've seen too many people make the mistake that when you see the word Jesu, or when you see the word Hyksos, or when you see these type of people, that you're dealing directly with Asiatics. But this is not necessarily true. In this case, these people are described also as Aimu, meaning they did come, at least written that they came from the northern lands, meaning the lands just above Egypt, which doesn't necessarily mean that they are Asian in descent, but it does mean they came from that direction. Their clothes, of course, also give that away. Now, the only problem is that this person is has also got some features of Nubians, which is why I have the problem of just looking at him like an Asian. Firstly, he's holding a Nubian ibex. Also, he's amongst a group of people who are clearly multiple groups, including Egyptians, and all of them are termed as Aimu. This does not mean that these people are all Asians. If we look at the way that they're painted in other images, we can see that there is a clear difference between the dark Aimu and the light skin Aimu. And the light skin Aimu are usually depicted as light skin Aimu. Does this mean that everyone who is under the Aimu are not Egyptian or they're not Asian? The word Aimu is not a race. The word Hyksos is not a race either. It just means people from foreign lands, especially when it's mixed with Heka, Hesut to become Hyksos. That specifically means independent countries, meaning they could have Egyptians in that country, and those Egyptians will be, if they, people, when I say Egyptian, Egyptian descent, and when they come from that region down, they're going to be considered Hyksos. They're going to be considered independent people coming from a foreign land because they rule the foreign land regardless of whether or not they are of different race. And how do I know? Well, if we continue to read the parts of the Hatshepsut thing, you can see there where it says the people of Punt who are unknown to the Egyptians, meaning that these people, them being foreign is not good enough. Them being foreign doesn't mean anything to the Egyptians. These are people who are unknown to the Egyptians, meaning they do not represent anything that people have seen before in Egypt. So let's read it, but I want to make sure you guys also notice that there is more in terms of generic terms for foreigners. Are you ready? Which, by the way, Wikipedia, they say there's only one word for generic foreigners, and it's the other one that I'm about to name, but it's not true. There's many words for generic foreigners in ancient Egypt. So it says there, and all good products of this foreign land, the Puntites, unknown to the Egyptians, the bearded people of the God's land. So this is the definition. This is the thing that there is striking about these specific Puntites, which we never see Puntites depicted with beards. But this is the thing that they're saying about these ones, that the thing that is striking about these ones is that they're bearded. These specific Puntites are bearded. I placated them for your sake, that they will give you praise as a god, because of the greatness of your might throughout the foreign lands. Again, Het Hesut, right there. Het Hesut, foreign lands. They know that I am their Lord, and have acknowledged that I am the rightful image of Amun Ra, daughter who subjugated their lords, the king of Upper and Lower Egyptian Matkare. And then here's the part where there is a generic term for foreigners. I begot her for me. I am your father. I set fear of you in the 9 bows. Pisadit, pidit. I don't know how to say the word properly, but that word, 9 bows, that word refers to any random foreign area, but really it's saying all the foreign areas, which with this understanding, we can understand that at least they think there's 9 foreign areas of the world. This is Asia, this is the Middle East, this is the Arabian areas, this is Libya, this is the Chad region, Sudan, the land of Punt. It's so many regions. Also the sea regions. Probably because we know there were Minoans in ancient Egypt who visited there. Possibly even Europe being described. Almost hilariously, you can see here that this word, the 9 bows, seems to be reflected, or at least it seems to be seen as the only word that can be used for foreign lands generically, but it's not true. The 9 bows is a visual representation in ancient Egyptian art of foreigners or others. Besides the 9 bows, there were no other generic representations of foreigners. Not true, due to its ability to stand in for any 9 enemies to ancient Egypt. The peoples covered by this term changed over time as enemies changed, and there is no true list of the 9 bows. The rest of it I agree with, but this is true for the word hyksos as well. You cannot put a race on it. You cannot put anything on it. You can't even remove Egyptians from it, because the word does not refer to people who couldn't, like for example Egyptians who are marshaled, right? People who were Egyptians who were in Asia, who would work with the foreign enemy, so their descendants are in Asia, and then they would come back and fight wars against Egypt. Those people would not be considered Egyptians. Now, moving slightly away from the word itself and everything else, you can, first of all, you can tell that the word Hyksos is already in this area. You can look there. There's that sign and there's that lower sign over there. So these are the hyksos, the hesut that are being described in this area, and they're bringing all forms of offerings or trade goods. I thought they were arrested when I first looked at the image a long time ago, but that's actually just a line in the back. They have no chains around them, so these people are freely coming in. They're clearly from, well, at least two of them are clearly from Asia, and then one of them is from what we would call Europe. That's the Minoan right there. Something that will strike you is that they're dressed like Egyptians, except for the guy at the front who's dressed like an Asian. And the reason why it's important to know this is because a lot of people, once they move into Egypt, they're not part of foreign lands. So if you move from Nubia and you end up in if you move from Kush, right, and you end up in somewhere in Egypt, but not Upper Egypt, somewhere in Egypt like Lower Egypt, a lot of times you're not going to be referred to anymore as a Kushite, as Kushite refers more to land than race. Now, in some cases, they would, especially in times of war, or if you just came, or if your mother was a Kushite or something like that, they will refer to you as a Kushite. There's been a growing trend over the history to say that ancient Egyptians don't see race, which I'll talk about in a different video because obviously they saw race. I mean, look at their images. But it is true that they cared less about race and more about location, more about who do you represent, what do you believe in, do you believe in the ancient Egyptian mythology, but they also cared about blood. Are you related to us by blood? Not are you racially related to us, but are you related to us by blood? Now you might be thinking, well, isn't that the same as race? No, because if you have a kid, if you're black and you have a kid with a white person, you're still related by blood. This would be a completely different way of looking at things than a lot of other people look at it in the world. If this is true about the word Hyksos, how come then it eventually meant it for the Asians? How come most people think about it about of those people who brought the carts and they brought all kinds of things from Asia? Well, it's because one of the earliest writings of the word, it's not the earliest, but one of the earliest writings of the word is from that specific region, and it's that image of that dude with a goat that I just showed you. And it has the mix of the word Heka, Hesut, which again is not very popular. It's usually just Hesut on its own. And so the people are like, oh, Heka, Hasut, Hyksos, Asians. That makes sense, but it's not true. Heka, Hasut can mean anybody, lord of foreign lands, generic term, has nothing to do with that. The thing I like about this image is that it shows some of the stuff that people were bringing from foreign lands, and it's almost like I don't know, it's like a weird dictionary for the pictures or stuff that they were bringing. If you zoom in, let's do a quick go through. You can see there that the Nubians and slash Puntite slash Libyans, just this is a generic mixture of presents being brought from Asia. They're bringing Basenji. These are the dogs that come from Africa, and you can see there they're drawn at the top, and then they come with their own cattle with mixed colors at the bottom, and then you can see at the bottom that the Asiatics are coming with their own sort of dog or wild cat, almost as if it's like a study of species. You can see here a giraffe, which is technically a horse or technically part of the horse family. And you can see that a monkey is climbing on it, showing the freedom of the animal, but it's not free, it's being driven by a human. So you can see that. But right at the bottom, you see a horse driven by the Asiatics. This makes it very easy to know which people are bringing what from what region. It also defeats the idea that Africans couldn't tame certain wild animals like zebras and giraffe and stuff like that. Clearly they did. And to bring it all the way to Egypt from your land is crazy. And of course, there's that picture of the Chinese coming and fetching and being gifted a giraffe. After that, you can see that it's less about animals and more about gifts. And at the bottom, the Asiatic is carrying a chariot. He's pulling a chariot by hand. And you can see that they're also carrying stuff on their arms, which I assume might be gold or some other precious item. Carried on their shoulders, you see the Asiatic man right at behind the chariot, carrying some type of liquid in a jar. But if we look up, you can see the Nubians are bringing some white substance, which I'm assuming are eggs. But then they're also bringing rhino horns or elephant tusks to ancient Egypt, which would have been very valuable at the time. And then these dudes are also carrying some kind of black straight like structure, which I have no idea what it is. I'll have to look it up. And then, of course, there's baboons and stuff. It's almost like a very beautiful picture of the difference between Asia and Africa. Then, of course, if we continue to look, you can see here that some of these jars they appear to be empty. So I think they're bringing certain foreign made pottery for the pharaoh, and others are bringing weapons and stuff like that to the region. And you can see the Nubians slash Puntites are bringing in leopards, they're bringing in tusks, they're bringing in food, they're bringing in whatever that thing is, that white thing. And then, of course, when we get to the end, we can see that they're all piled up and there's more stuff there. Lots of animals being brought from Nubia and lots of pottery being brought from Asia. It's one of the easiest divides between the lands. Now, I will say that an immediate thing that you will see is that the people from Nubia seem to be more relatable or more related to the Egyptians in both clothes and depiction, as opposed to the people of Asia, who their clothes are closer to that other hyksos person that we showed, these long clothes that cover the entire body, probably to protect themselves from the sun, as opposed to the Nubians who expose themselves because who cares? So, in conclusion, next time you run into a documentary that says the history of the Hyksos or anything like that, just know that you're about to watch someone who doesn't even understand the true nature of this word or these people. Hyksos just means the world in general, foreign lands, any land outside of Egypt. And even some of them, like the Nubian regions, are inside of Egypt, just belonging to foreign rulers, like the Red Lands.